UNSPSC hierarchy. And Cyril already explained that on first day, but we want to make sure that you understand that this, because it's new to the system as well. And it's part, this is the result of another project that is called Material Master Transformation. And you need to be aware of this thing. Now, everybody familiar with the concept of product ID? I hope so. Also, it was part of the prerequisites. So you know that the product ID identifies an item, right? One type of product, and you have a description and it's uniquely defined, and that is very important for the shopping carts, and we know this one. Now, on this Material Master Transformation project, and then Casper is also connected, so he can explain anything else. A relation between products and commodities have been established. So now the products are not like a flat list, but they are part of a hierarchy. Right? This hierarchy is different from the hierarchy of commitment items, for example, that is more oriented to funds management. So for every product that you have now in the system, like for example, we will see in the exercises we are taking medical supplies and so on. Every product belongs to a commodity. Commodity is kind of like a group of products that makes sense to be like managed together. And then the commodity belongs to a class, and the class to a family, right? And then we have a segment, which means that when we will be performing planning, we will see that we can plan products at this level. For example, we can say we need 20 boxes of gloves of size L, right? One product would be a glove, but of a specific material and size. Or we may plan, or we may want to see something at commodity level. So we may say we need gloves of this material without getting into the sizes. All right. So this is somehow new. Is it clear that now products belong to a commodity and the commodity to a class, and there is a hierarchy? Is this clear? Do you understand this concept? That you have to see now like the material master, not as a full list, but as a tree. Is it clear? Any question on the chat? Do you want me to repeat it in a different way? Do you visualize that this commodity is more general than the product itself? So when I'm not sure if you are replying on the chat.
The chat, David. No, not. There is a question, and there is actually the person that raised her hands has a question. So it's Elizabeth, and she said, "Does commodity equal category ID?"
Casper, can you reply to that? Because there is I mean, it's in the way. I don't think it's exactly matching for all the cases. Casper, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, could you repeat that, Valentina?
Yes, Elizabeth, do you want to ask the question yourself? Please do it.
Sure. Commodity is a new concept, at least for me. So does it equal GL account code? Does it equal category ID? What does it equal in the current system?
So we have both UNSPSC hierarchy and we have the category management hierarchy, which is the one you know. And the UNSPSC hierarchy is one which is not directly linked to those, but we do make a direct link between the commodity and the lowest level of the category management hierarchy. So there's the link made.
Yeah, just to add to what Casper said, so in the current world, you have what we call the material group or the product category, which is in some form or fashion is at various level of this hierarchy. But what we've done through this material master transformation is make sure every product ID that we have is classified to the lowest level. So in some materials like notebooks, commodity and material group would be equal because today the material group is the lowest level, which is the commodity. But some items like gloves, I believe, it's not classified surgical or medical, but it's either at a class level. But with this exercise, every single PID that UN operates and uses, it's classified down to a commodity. So eventually what you see today as the material group will fade off and commodity will be the lowest level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Now, a general note for our dynamic, we still have some days to go ahead, so we need to adapt our learning process. When we are as training, we are explaining a concept, we cannot see your faces, so we don't know if what we are explaining is well understood or if we are saying stupid things. So when we try to explain a concept, we need your feedback. So if we ask if it's clear, if you got it, please reply on the chat, yes, it's clear. And if it's not clear as well, say it. David, what you're saying is bullshit. Go home, put someone else to talk, right? So if it works what we are saying and you understand it, please give us feedback, because we don't know if you understood, if we don't know if we have to explain it in a different way. All right, so please, we need your feedback often in the chat. Now, if this concept of product idea and commodity is clear, all right, and I can go ahead. So let me go to the next one. This is another view of what we were saying, because when we are talking about DPSMP solution, we might not be planning at all levels. No, the most common thing is when if we are preparing the plan. For example, if we are talking about fixed assets, we will do it at product level. We will say we will need one X-ray machine by next year June, because the one that we have is getting super old, right? Or for some other type of products like spare parts, we will not do it at product ID. We will not say we need a 24 oil filter of this serial number. We might maybe go at commodity level and say we will need 20 oil filters of this type, right? But typically, when you are going to do your demand planning with your gross demand, you will specify either products or commodities that are more generic, right? As I said, if we are going by globes, so maybe we say we need 100 globes, and then we will distribute 50% of size L, 30% of size M, something, right? So for the products, we will work typically at product ID level or at commodity level. Is this clear? You understand the example I'm giving? You might be very specific on what you need, or you might go a bit higher and be a bit more generic if the items are like pretty specific. Is this clear? Good. Okay. So now we go to the other element of the planning. It is at what level of the plant we are performing our gross demand. And I think the first one is very easy to understand. For example, if we're talking about acquiring some particular product, we might say we need 1,000 elements of this product for the full plant. If we plan for a particular product and the full plant, we can say the planning level we are using is product plant, because we are acquiring a X-ray machine, and we are doing it. We are counting all the X-ray machine that we need for the plant. Do you know what is a plant? Maybe I'm assuming that you know what is a plant, but might not be clear. Are you familiar with the concept of the plant? Cyril, Valentina, I need feedback because I don't see the chat while I'm explaining.
Well, I will interrupt you only if I see something. Let's give it down sometimes. Well, okay. No, this is the nation. Sorry. Yeah, plant is the mission. Elizabeth is agrees. Yeah, they are not no questions.
So with the plant,
David,
yeah,
let's do that. Don't worry about the chat. If there's a question on the chat that we can answer, you are answering them. If you cannot answer, you will stop. Valentina and myself, right?
All right.
Okay.
So if I am asking and the feedback is positive, I go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So yeah, the plant identifies the entity, right? Identifies the mission or the entity. Now, for your plant, in the deployment together with Amarin and Dinesha and Teresa, the mission has been the same, determining or listing a list of planning groups. These planning groups are groups within the mission that make sense to have a particular planning strategy. For example, you might have a planning group for your medical section, or you might have a planning group for your engineering section, right? You can have a particular planning group for a particular service delivery pillar, or you might have a planning group for different service delivery, for different locations. For example, you might have, it depends on the mission, I guess, but you might have a planning group considering different medical sections in different regions, etc. But in other words, for a particular plant, you may have more than one planning group, right? Maybe if you want Amarin or Dinesha to add something on this definition to make sure that when we speak about planning groups, it's clear, or you can give an example of their entities, right? If you know them by heart.
Yes, so if just to quickly jump in, is that to answer one of the questions in the chat, in most cases, plant does equal entity. It's true for mostly all peacekeeping entities. But once we start going away for offices away from headquarters and some of the departments within the Navy, this concept tends to become a bit gray. So for everybody else's purposes, apart from the specific entities, plant equals entity. But planning group, what we've done is each entity that operates has a storage location. In most cases, if you're receiving goods you receive goods and subsequently issue it out. Then you also purchase services without a storage location, but directly under a fund center, because services, we don't physically receive anything, rather a service. So the sublocation in IBP refers to either a storage location, which truly, I guess, represents your physical location. In the case of ANSOS, it can be Mogadishu engineering or Mogadishu transport. And another sublocation could be it's the fund center related to engineering or transport. So that's that lowest level. And planning group is a level above it, which each entity, I think through Amrin and team, we've reached out to all the entities that are here in this course, is the way of grouping it. So if you want, you can plan at that lowest level, which is Mogadishu engineering or transport, Mogadishu, etc. Or you can plan at that level that you grouped the sublocation. So in some cases, entities decided to group it by to say it's engineering or it's transport. In some cases, entities decided to group it by what we call administrative or a substantive section. So you can plan at that high level, and eventually it will roll up to the plant. In that case, it will be UNSPSC. So that's the hierarchical concept. You don't necessarily have to be at one level. You can select, looking at the data, what's the most appropriate level to plan at. You can either be at the lowest or somewhere in between or the highest.
Thank you, Dinesh. So,
and if I may add a little bit of the exception cases here, we also looking at the department or the entity that sits in, for example, in UNMISS, in UNSOS, there are substantive office, or let's say UNTSS. UNTSS itself, we will be treating them as an entity, but they don't have their own plant. They might have fund center across, multiple plants, multiple missions, multiple entities. So with this concept of the planning group, this is where we will be using this specifically only for the DPS&P. So that's what I'm just want to add one exception cases there.
Thank you. So, and then to summarize, if you look at these two parameters that are very conceptual, if you take one element from the left and one element from the right, you are defining a planning level. So, and this is the meaning of the planning level. So, in other words, if you want to plan if you want to do the gross demand for particular products at planning group level, you have one planning level. If you want to do commodity at plant level, that's another planning level, because you will be planning all these elements at this for the full plant. So in the next slide, you have let's say the three main planning or four main planning levels that we will be using in the solution. So you can do at plan level, planning for the whole mission, products, or at plan level for the full entity, I would say, commodity, so groups of products. Or you can do it at planning group level for a particular group of storage locations or fund centers at commodity level. or if you go very specific on the product and the sublocation, you will do it for a particular, as Dinesa said, engineering Mogadishu, for example. That would be the lowest level. Now this is important. I mean, you will understand it better while we use the system and the tool. But now, at least, I hope you should have like an idea of these elements and what is the planning level. So what level you are planning. Okay. Is there any question about it? This is the end of this summary, and then we will move to the presentation on historical demand. But is there any question from the audience?
Some question, but were answered and addressed through the chat, Denisha and
okay,
myself.
Right.
So you can continue.
Okay, thank you. So Valentina, then I think we are to go to the main content of the day.
All right. So you can see my screen,
yes,
right? Okay, so let me put in. All right, so today's presentation will be on the historical data, the template we saw yesterday briefly during the basic navigation exercise. Before going into that, we are going to go briefly through hand-to-hand process, just once again to present the entire process of formulating a gross demand. So the gross demand, as was explained in the video and as was mentioned during these 2 days, includes statistical forecast based on historical data. And this statistical forecast is the result of a number of processes. The first one is the historical data. The second is the classification, data cleansing, segmentation, statistical forecast. Now, some of these processes are going to be run automatically by the system, by the solution. In others, like the historical data we saw yesterday, they implies and they require an active role, analytical thinking from the planner. We already know that this is the gross demand is not complete just with statistical forecast. It needs the input from of the requirement needed to run an entity priority or mission priority project, and the additional demand, which is the demand that includes those elements that are not included in statistical forecast for the simple reason, for example, that we don't have historical data of this product, or in the case of equipment. We will see this very clearly and extensively during the training. The segmentation will be Monday with the statistical forecast, and today, as I say, we are going to focus on the historical data, and tomorrow classification, data cleansing. Now, what I want to show is the end-to-end process. Please raise your hands as usual if something is not clear or want me to repeat. So yesterday we saw very clearly, I mean, at this point I think I'm assuming that everybody understood that the solution is fed with the consumption history from Umoja production. This is the input of our first process, which is the historical data. This historical data is, as the name of the template, the solution uses for that. What it does, it analyzes what you will do actually is analyzing and adjusting the data that are coming from Umoja. Why we're adjusting? Why this process? You have to across all this presentation keep in mind something very important. What we are doing is starting a process that will end in generating a forecast. A statistical forecast needs clean and specific data. So that we are preparing this data for the solution to generate this statistical forecast because we needed an accurate statistical forecast. So the input of the historical data we will upload from Moja production the historical data. The planner will analyze and adjust. We will see why we need to adjust something that supposedly is about real consumption, but we will see very two simple case. And then the output of this process will be the final history. So the little flag just indicates that that's what we are going to talk today. And now the final history will be the input of the following process. You remember from the previous slide, the classification and the data cleansing. Now the classification is, the classification is a press-step process for the data cleansing to run. The data cleansing is also automatically run by the system. And what is the purpose of this? The classification is a statistical analysis of the final history, consumption history, and what it does is classify this data series according to some characteristics. So we are talking about consumption. So we are going to see if this data respond to criteria for a seasonality or intermittence in this demand, or there is a trend. And this is very crucial, is important for the following process, which is the data cleansing. What the system here does is doesn't correct anything or clean anything wrong. What it does is really prepare the data for the final statistical forecast to be generated. This is very clear. It's going to be very clear presentation tomorrow on what the system does. So the final output of this process is the cleanse history. So now what we have? We have data that are really ready to generate the statistical forecast. So now the cleanse history is the input of the statistical forecast. So you might already have noticed that the 5, it comes after the 3 because we have a very important process which is run by the system as well. You can run this anytime you want, but it's very important to do at this point for the simple fact that this segmentation is practically the solution categorize the product. I mentioned yesterday very quickly, based on their importance. What the segmentation will add to the planning job is to give crucial information on which product or which group of product should be prioritized in calculating the gross demand. Is ABC, the result we saw yesterday, ABC code. Some of you might remember yesterday, it was a quick presentation, but David will go through this today, and maybe we'll use the same attribute we used yesterday. So finally, once the segmentation is run, the planner decide which product or group of product are going to be run for the forecast. We have a statistical, the final statistical forecast, which is the first element of the gross demand. Now we saw, and we say it again, this is not final. There are products that are not included in this final, in the consumption history that generated this final forecast. So how we forecast the demand of this product. One case is the entity omission priority demand. This can be a completely new item, a product. It can be a product that you use, but you are going to need more or in a different quantity just because you need specifically for this product. So the solution will allow you to do that with a specific template. And least but not last, the equipment demand issue. We are going to see that the solution was designed to address this particular issue with equipment, how you, with a reasonably accurateness, how you forecast the equipment demand. And this is part of the additional demand. The additional demand will include also completely new products. or product without history, or a product that we need for ad hoc demand. So this will be the final element, and then the gross demand will be calculated. Now, if you have questions, this is the moment to ask, because next I'm gonna go through the historical data template. Question?
So there are no questions. I mean, there was a question, but it's replied. Could you go back, Valentina, and leave the slide one moment so people take some time to see it if they understand the diagram? This is very important, and also the previous one.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry.
So the explanation, the explanation is very clear, but maybe there is a lot of information. So I think it's good if they spend like 30 seconds to look at the screen. So this is the process that Valentina explained of how it flows in the system, historical data. After adjustment, it considers final history, then the classification that is done by the system on the time series. There is an automatic cleansing process, right? And then on the next slide, we continue explaining the process. I think there are two hands raised, so
yes, Leo from UNMIS. Maybe you want to speak up, and Zayad later.
Yeah, I would. It's about the same. If you can go to the next slide, number 3, the last one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sure. I see Danisha answered, but I'm still not clear. Where the unfulfilled requirements come into the place, where the system factors them in. Mainly it's about the back orders, right? You have a requirement which couldn't be fulfilled from various reasons. I understand the system doesn't raise back orders. So where do we factor them in?
Yeah, that was a question in the chat. Dinesha, can you answer again, please?
Yes. So when it comes to gross demand, you've still not accounted for your stock or your incoming receipts, right? So it will be factored in the unfulfilled component once you have the gross demand and you factor in your net demand. There's still an unfulfilled component that will be factored in net demand, not here. So what I, in my answer to Jainaba, what I also mentioned is also the fact that for example, if the technical sections or the service delivery sections have come up with the gross demand, and at the very final stages of finalizing the gross demand and discussions are ongoing between service delivery and acquisition planning, for example, and at that point you make a decision that even though we've asked for 350 ventilators, maybe at this point we cannot ask for 350, we only ask for that 300, you can still make an adjustment to that gross demand. So you would say originally that service delivery sections asked for 350, but now it's 300. So in that sense, the original demand or the need, you can also see it as the gross demand, and then you could see it as also the adjusted gross demand. But if you're purely referring to the out of stock situation or the deficit, that would be captured when it comes to net demand. There are additional key figures to give that visibility as well. Did I answer your question, or are you still not clear?
And why more yes and no? Why wouldn't we capture under gross demand? Why do we go at the end in net?
Because I guess maybe my question back to you is, what do you exactly mean by the unfulfilled demand, or the, what do you call it?
For example, I need 1,000 kilograms of cement, right? It's a requirement for that. The consumption will be 500 because I didn't have stock. Those 500s negative, I still need them next year to fulfill my project. So it's a back order. It's called as a back order. The system should trigger a back order.
Where did that 1,000
should be captured under gross demand, isn't it?
Where did the 1,000 come from?
The requirement.
So when you say the requirement, how did that requirement come up? Because
it's a project in 2019, okay. Right?
Got it. Okay, so let's run through the example, right? So you had a consumption of 500. Based on the consumption of 500, say the system forecasted a statistical forecast of somewhere around the ballpark figure of 500. And then you said next year you're starting a project because you're planning ahead. You said I need another 500 cement bags. So now based on the statistical forecast, you have 500. And based on the project that you're separately identifying, there's another demand of 500. And if you didn't have any other additional demand based on any other factors, your gross demand at that point is 1,000. Now, once you have that 1,000, for some reason you say that, yes, I cannot fulfill this 1,000, I can only fulfill 800. So the system is going to capture that difference between the final gross demand of 800 and your original gross demand of 1,000, and that adjustment that you made 200 as the unfulfilled component is captured in the system. Towards the very end, I think towards the end of next week, once you come to the final gross demand template, you will see this unfulfilled component captured as an additional key figure.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on and we will see.
So what I wanted to add is that this slide is also very important for you to understand. And if it's not fully clear all the elements, you can revisit it this afternoon. This big box that you see as gross demand has 3 arrows coming to it. One is coming from the statistical forecast that will come somehow from the historical consumption. But for any other element of the demand, if it's related to project, will come from entity priority project demand, and we will do that in the system during next week. And if it's any other product that was not in the historical consumption, or it's related to equipment demand, it will come as additional demand. So these 3 arrows are very important for you to remember, because there are 3 elements here: final statistical forecast, entity priority project, and additional demand. And we will go through all of them. Now for this presentation, Valentina is going to focus on the historical demand. But this is a full end-to-end that we will go box by box during this training, and we will explain every single box of these 2 slides. Okay? There was someone else with the raised hand, right? Sihat? Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, David, it's okay. You said that we are going to learn each box by box. I wanted to ask about the segmentation and classification, where the system does this by default. I just want to, if there is some reading materials on how the system do the segmentation and classification, rather than to be explained here online, it would be appreciated. I need to see what are the variables and fixed elements that goes into the algorithm to get the segmentation and classification.
We will explain all this. Actually, segmentation is going to be explained tomorrow, and I don't remember the following days.
It's Monday.
And we will have all the information, and also we will give you extra reference information if you want to investigate. We will explain important elements for you to understand, and for further information, we will also have. Now, sorry, there is my.
Very good. Thank you.
Over to you.
Dave, one quick question. Can I, please?
Of course.
Can you just give me one example or 2 of this history cleaning, cleansed history, which you are saying here, just briefly, if you can, please.
Yeah, we will, if you don't mind. Sorry, could we mute the microphone?
Yeah, I need to mute the microphone. Yeah, we will go through the data cleansing tomorrow. For today, we are going to just show the historical data template. So before I go ahead, I just want to go back here and show to you that I point out that this 5 process, as David said, just say, we are going to go through all of them. And what I would like you to notice is that the input of the output of this of each of them becomes the input of the following process, like the slide I would explain to you. So I'm going to go back there. I just want to show you that for the next 3 days, we are going to talk about today the historical data, tomorrow the classification and the data cleansing, and Monday the segmentation and the statistical forecast. This will end with the statistical forecast, which is the first element that goes into the gross demand. Now, again, this was the end-to-end. You can see that the output, the historical data, is become the input of the classification. We're going to see tomorrow the classification and the data cleansing, and the cleanse history. So the history, the data they are prepared for the statistical forecast, they are actually the input of the statistical forecast. The segmentation, also this pre-process, we will talk about that on Monday. In the output, the final statistical forecast is the first element of the gross demand. Then it's generating lots of discussion. We are going to see one specific day is going to be dedicated to the entity priority project demand, and one it will be dedicated to the additional demand and with the equipment demand. Now, as I said, we are going to focus on the historical data template. So we saw that the data are uploaded, the historical consumption is uploaded from Umoja production, and this consumption history of each material and service. We will see now why, in which case, this consumption data need to be adjusted by the planner. And the final output of this first process will be the final history. So let's start with saying what the historical data template does. We saw yesterday briefly. I used it for the basic navigation. This template. Okay, first of all, the process is the process that prepare the data for the forecast. So this is the first step in this preparation, and it allows the planner to analyze the consumption history allotted by Umoja production from Umoja production, and if in two cases, it will allow the planner to adjust the existing data and to reflect the real consumption. So we are ready. This is what we are going to see today. It's not a long presentation. It's actually basically almost done. This is a screenshot from the historical data template. You might remember from yesterday. Here you have on the right-hand side the data loaded by from Umoja production, so the consumption for in the past 2 years. You have here the attributes. So this is the screenshot of plant IL20. This is the commodity. This is the product ID, the product inside the commodity. This is a gloves product. And these are other information. So I want to just you to focus on the key figure of this historical data. You can see consumption history you have is populated by numbers, which is the consumption, and the adjustment consumption history, which is the line where the planner can adjust the data, and the final consumption history, it will reflect the adjustment if there is any. Otherwise, you can see that is equal to is just copy the data from the consumption history if adjustment consumption history is not needed. Obviously, this is before this will be the first look for you, so the adjustment consumption history line can actually be populated. Now, let's focus on what is consumption history. So what it goes into the template, what it goes into the solution. What will go is the good issue, so material that leaves the inventory for consumption. The good receipt, so material ordered for consumption, directly for consumption without going into the inventory, and the service entry sheets. So this is a little box of the material movement document that might concern the consumption history. So before going further, I assume there are no questions, or I can go on. So this is what go into the consumption history again. So a particular material leaves the inventory to be consumed, so the good issue. A particular material is purchased to be consumed, good receipt, and the service for the service received. Now, when, yes, David.
Just 1 second. That's something that we can add to the in this moment. Could you go back to the previous?
Sure.
Also, Dinesha was mentioning that, and I think it's important. And this is a good slide to mention something we will see also in the exercise. But that's an important information that you need to keep in mind, and I think it's also in some slides and in the exercise as well. As consumption history, when it comes to materials, right, and either if it comes from good issues or out of inventory, or if you are not inventory and it's good received, you will always have quantities. Okay, so the gross demand will be formulated in terms of number of items, quantities for materials. Now for services, also there's a long story behind that. For services, since not all the prices in the POs and historical information, it's let's say standard, and some service entry sheet don't have the proper information. The consumption history for services will come as values, right, as dollar value. So that's, you write it down if you have notes. I hope you are taking notes on the training. So this is something we will see later in the exercise as well. But remember that for materials, it would be quantities. For services, it would be values for the time being. I think that is also related to the quality of the historical data. All right, Elizabeth, you have a question on this slide?
Yes, please. I'd like to go back to Gunmala's question from before. So if I have, when I first opened this tool, equipment that was issued longer ago than 24 months, I will have to adjust for in the adjustments. Is that correct?
So no, so for equipment, and that's something that we're going to see next Monday. I know that everybody's wondering about equipment because we have plenty of them. For equipment, if they were issued out a long time ago, as well, that is not, let's say the equipment is not consumed the moment that they are issued out. For equipment, we have a separate template, a separate process that is called equipment template, and it will go as additional demand. All right, and so for equipment, what we are discussing now is historical consumption, and for equipment, always remember we have another process that we will see later. So I'm afraid that all the equipment questions we need to hold them a bit until next Monday, right? Focus now on the historical consumption. Of course, if you are from STS, you have lots of equipment to see. But remember, for equipment, there is equipment, another process that will give us information about their useful life, and we will be adding that as additional demand. Okay, any other question about this slide before Valentina continues? Okay, so there are more questions about the same topic, so maybe we can continue, and we have some replies as well. So Valentina, over to you again. Thank you.
All right. So yes, David said that the question about the equipment will be answered. Will be clear once we explain that process of the solution. However, for a better understanding, maybe when you look at this slide and you see material from inventory, you can just think about the gloves that I was showing before the screenshot. So these are something that you can buy, put in inventory, and then issue as you need for consumption. And I think that naturally, when we see inventory, we just think about a computer or something like equipment, so that might create confusion. But that's what is it. It's a material that leaves the inventory to be consumed, and when I think the rest of the box are pretty clear. The next slide is it just explain when and where this material is consumed. So when, well, in the case there is in the case of the good issue, the date of the date the material leave the inventory will be the actual time when it's considered consumed. And in the case of the good receipt is obviously the date on it, and the same will apply for the service entry sheet as proof that we receive a service. When and where, so where something is consumed, it will be the sublocation. This is a concept that David explained again at the beginning of the day. So I hope everything is clear as far as concerned that information, or any other information you can see on the slide. If you have any question on this, please.
Yeah, there are two hands raised, but okay. I think Sayed wanted to ask something, and also Gunmala, but let's go to Sayed first. Sayed Mulana, you're muted, so I don't know if you're talking. Okay.
Hello.
So we go to,
yeah, David. David, sorry, my question was on. I saw your services entry sheet there. I mean, SES there. But if you recall, the planning level, we have quantity and the value swapped when it comes to entry, doing the entry in Umoja. In the AP, we have in a different format, and in the execution, it's a different format. And do you have the same now in this particular instance now when you have the SNP, DP and SNP? I mean, when you talk of quantity, it is the same in the plan as well as in Umoja.
So for what we mentioned, that's a very appropriate question. What we mentioned is that this is one of the reasons that the quantities and the price are swapped in some examples. So when you will see historical consumption regarding to service entry sheets, you will see that it's in value. So the historical consumption and as well the forecast for the time being, until I guess until the project informs us differently or the quality of the data evolves, the services are managed in value. So you will not have the quantity. So the final value of the service, right? So you will have it in amounts. I mean, in financial amount, in value. All right. But for materials, it will be quantity. But for services, in some services are swap quantities and prices. Other ones have quantity one with the full amount. Other ones are properly mapped. It was not possible to do it by quantity for the time being due to the quality of the data. So the services, remember, write this down. When you see the services, they are managed in the planning as value. I think it's dollar value, right? If not, Dinesh, just correct me. And there is also a possibility to manage the target currency as well eventually, but as value. Services as value, products as quantity. That's something that you need to remember from today on in the PSMP solution as it is right now. Okay.
Yes, just very quickly, I think Amreen wants to say something as well, with the exception of fuel, because fuel is something we were able to bring the data in from EFMS, so that will come into DSNP as quantity. But I think Amreen does want to say something about the quality of the data on the service entry sheet. Amreen.
Yes, thanks, Dinesha. So since we touched on this topic, yes, we identified that there are a lot of data challenges when it comes to the service entry sheet, the purchase order, the contract. So we are in the process of actually working with our PD colleagues in HQ before we extend this cleanup exercise, okay, to the entities. Basically, we just want to make sure that we are able to, update or maybe clean up some of the contracts, because as the upstream, right, to be able to reflect the real quantity and price. I mean, we are talking about all the service contract, but again, it's going to be a long journey, and this will go to each of the respective owner of each contract in the entities as well. That's all over.
Okay, thank you. And there was another comment from Herbert. speaking about reservations that we cannot fulfill as forecast as lower, and then they are not captured as historical consumption while the demand was there. So we will see also later during the week that if you are aware of this type of situations, it can be added for the same product as additional demand. So it was not historical consumption because it was never consumed, but you know the demand was there. So there are other places in the system to add this thing based on your professional judgment. So of course we cannot reply all the questions like for all the parts of the system, but that day by day we will be touching them. So over to you, Valentina. I think you have, or I don't know if Gunmala wanted to say something. Yeah, Gunmala.
Yeah. So thank you, Dinesha, for clarifying for fuel because it's highly volatile commodity. But I think the same should be applicable. If systematically it's not possible, still there should be some option of quantity, and of course you are including dollar value. Because say for example, in case of Russian or when we take the photocopier with the, it's a service contract which comes with a photocopier, but there is a maintenance component, service component, and then there is a goods component. So quantity, sometimes value may not give us the business judgment to put as a demand line for future, but quantity, if known, whatever it is, and then along with the dollar value, then we can, utilize it for our business judgment. Is it possible to include quantity or no? For services with goods component, specifically I'm talking about.
Yes, I mean, the system is designed in such a way that once the data quality improves, I think what Valentina and David are going to show is in the system, there's right now an indicator to say if this particular item is planned by quantity or value. So right now, like David said, most of the services are planned by value. However, as the data quality improves, we can switch some of these items to be planned as quantity. The reason we saw, like when we looked at HR services, for example, the data indicated they were using quantity as and hours. But the problem was 95% of the data was good, the 5% of the data wasn't good. So if we were aggregating at a commodity level or even higher level, we were then aggregating quantity and value, and then the data started to become meaningless in that sense. So that's why when we moved over, we decided that if you're switching something to either be planned as quantity or value, it would be done for that entire category. So, I mean, with this exercise with PD and of course, reaching out to the entities for local contracts, if the data quality improves, all we have to do is a simple switch in the system and you can start planning it by quantity.
But there is a provision already.
Yes, there is, of course.
Okay.
The ultimate goal is demand plan is done by quantity. It shouldn't be done by value.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I mean, so long as anything that is like.
Okay, so thank you. Valentina, you can finalize or try to finalize the presentation. What is it?
So right, so we mentioned at the beginning that we might need to adjust the consumption data, and this is one of the rows that you saw on the template. So why we need to adjust a real consumption? If the reason is, as I mentioned before, the accurate forecast to be accurate needs an accurate baseline history. And that's what we assume is coming from Umoja. However, there are two cases in which the consumption history from Umoja production might differ from the real consumption. And the reason can be an incorrect imposting data or a system failure. So we're going to go through this, and I don't know if this is going to generate a discussion. However, I will stop after the next slide. So the incorrect posting data, I'm just summarize what is wrote there. Well, the posting data date in the Umoja production is incorrect. For example, when you have a consumption that is spread over 3 months, but the recording, the posting is done only once at the end of the quarter. So in this case, this consumption will not be captured in the data we just loaded. And the opposite will be when a product, the consumption of the product happens at the end of a month, but the recording is done at the beginning of the month. So if we are at the beginning of the month, that consumption will be incorrect for that period. The other, it will be a system failure, so just a temporary interface failure that will not deliver accurate data consumption. So these are the two cases that the planner is called to adjust to make accurate what in the reality is not. So it's I'm just going to stop here because I imagine there are some questions about it. No? Okay.
No, I don't see
All
any
right.
additional question.
All right. So once this is the last slide. So just to mention, but David will go through, and I'm going to speed up a little bit because it's important for you to see, to have time to see the demo of the historical data template that David is going to perform in a few minutes. The adjustment, when the adjustment is needed, the system, the solution will require you to indicate the reason. So you will be able to select a reason code and even to add a comment or notes to justify the adjustment. And as we saw at the beginning of the day, you can do adjustment and you can do planning at a different level, but the adjustment is recommended to adjust the consumption history at a PID level. The reason is, and you can see in the two last paragraph, if you do adjustment at the commodity level, the system will distribute that adjustment among the product of its commodity, following the percentage distribution of this product in the commodity. It's a very simple concept, but the words might not be very clear. It's very simple. If you have, for example, 3 products, let's say different color of A4 pages, and A4 white is 70% of your consumption, and the other 2 are 20 and 10. In that case, if you do a commodity adjustment at commodity level, the system will attribute the 70% of this adjustment to the A4 white, and 20 to the A4 blue, and 10 to the A4 tan. So to be accurate for this reason, it's recommended to do the consumption history, the adjustment consumption history at the PID level. On the other hand, if there are no historical data, if you do an adjustment at the commodity level, the system will distribute equally among all the products in that commodity. Now, the last 3 slides are the slide that David explained at the beginning. We thought that it was very important to go through that concept before starting to talk about historical data and the following process. And so you will have these 3 slides here with planning levels as concluded, as it was explained. So exactly the same slide. I just want to show you that here at the end of the presentation, each presentation, we are going to propose this slide again, where you're going to see that the process of historical data will be followed by the pre-process of the classification and the process of the data cleansing, and so on for the rest of the training. So thank you very much, and to you, David.
Thank you.
I stop sharing.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so Amari, you're frozen. I don't know if I lost connection. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you too.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so the idea now is to, I hope you are not too tired because we still have to see the system. So now we will go to the system and I will explain how to access the historical data template and how to use it. Nevertheless, while I'm connecting, I'm going to explain again how the exercise works. Okay. And how you can see what data you have to enter, because there was some confusion yesterday as well about the training environment. And then at the same time I'm doing it, at least the connection, please try to connect as well. And if you have any issue, please write it in the chat, because we will contact you during this afternoon or tomorrow morning to support. And then we have Casper as well, that is a super expert on the system. So I'm going to share my screen now. And 1 second. Okay, so this is the exercise. First of all, how do the exercises work? You will receive 2 exercises again today. You might have received already the exercise sheet. All right. So you have received one that is called historical data exercise. You will receive it, and another one that is called historical data exercise sheet or exercise cover. This exercise sheet is particular and is customized to you. This one is an example from Cyril. And in this exercise sheet, you have the products that you need to use. It is very important that you only use the plant and the products that are assigned specifically to you, because these are the ones that you can adjust, and you will not be adjusting someone else's product. So please, if you have to enter a product ID or a plant, go always to the to the exercise sheet to do it. On the other hand, in the exercise, let's say, main document, you have all the steps on how to connect. Now because we had a small change, an important change to make your life easier, like the day before we started training on the same day. And it's important for you to write down the following. You have to access the system that says IPP TRN. I'm sorry that you might have received yesterday an exercise that said QUA, but you have to access TRN. Please write this down as well. Keep it in mind. And now I'm going to access the system, but remember that we are accessing TRN, which is a training environment. So how I'm going to share a screen now, I'm going to access the system. And then feel free, if you didn't manage to do it yesterday for some technical reason, feel free to do it now. We have to go to loginbrim.umoja.en.org. Remember, this is a training environment. It's not in login.umoja. Some people were accessing the wrong address. It's loginbrim.umoja.un.org. Then you enter the credentials. Your EIDMS credential. If you remember it, because I think I put it wrongly. Okay. Once you get to this, let's say, dashboard, you have to go to utilities and then go to IBP Dev. So the system will download a file for Citrix and you have to open it. Of course, if you get this file and you cannot connect, it's because you might have a problem with the Citrix receiver that needs to be installed. You have to write to us and we will help you. So now it should be opening. If you get a message about the account, just close it. Okay. Do you want to forget about it? Yeah. See, there is a microphone open. I see some noise. And then you see automatically the system is opening Excel. This Excel, as I said before, is not in your machine. It's in a virtual machine that contains a special tab that is called SAP IBP. This is still from navigation exercise yesterday. Then you need to click on log on. And here, very important, I insist, you have to select TRN N24. I don't know if there is something else, but TRN is the training environment. The other one is for quality control. You select the training environment. So now the system will ask us to enter again the credentials. This one, I think you can click on cancel, but if you click on continue, I think nothing special happens. You enter your EIDMS again. Sorry, you have to do it twice because this time you are accessing the PSMP. I don't know why I don't remember my password today. And I have to enter a question, okay? Now the system is logging me in. A moment, let me try again. This. Okay, so all right, now we are within DPSMP. Now I'm going to ask you something. I will open now the historical data template that Valentina was explaining the business process. So now we will see the portion of the system. So I click on new view. I select from template. Always when we want to open a new template, we do it new view from template. This is from navigation exercises. And here we have the list of templates. And we select the first one, historical data. But you see all these templates that you see here, we will go through them during the training. In our case, we are going to select historical data. And now we will do what we can see in the exercise. So from time, we might check that we are seeing the last 24 months, right, from June 2018. From attributes, we don't need to change anything, right? Unless we want to see something like ABC code or something, but for this exercise, it's better we don't change anything. From key figures, we see what we will see in the data: consumption history, adjusted consumption history, final consumption history. And then for the filter, we are going to enter our plant. Now you might get in the screenshot one plant, but you don't enter any plant that you see in the screenshot. You have to go to your exercise sheet and see what plant is assigned to you for the testing, for the training. In my case, I'm going to use IL20. So I enter here IL20, or I select from this lookup values list. Now, after I have selected this, right, I can copy settings. So I have the same selection for the other tabs. To do this, I click on this button here. And I say, please copy my filter from consumption history to the rest of the tabs. Okay, that's a small thing. If you don't do this, it's not a big deal. You will have to do it again. But on this template, I didn't do anything special. I just entered the filter, is selected historical data, and I left the other thing as they are. And then I click OK. Now, this process is very simple. It's very easy, but still you may face issues. Since it's 1:30 and we have time, do you mind doing this? And then we will wait for you to know if you all can do it. And also then you don't fall asleep because we are talking for 1:30 already. Could you please do that? Try to get to this point and open the template if you are still there.
Yes, David, you have many attendees have many issues. You're going from performance or from inability to access the system. So are we sharing the link and the training environment that need to be used? But again, as I said, they will still face some difficulty of performance for many of them. So what I'm suggesting also is for you to go through,
Okay.
so they can follow you properly, and then they will have the time to try to redo it.
Okay, because we have a big number of people that didn't get to that point. Okay, so then we will be very busy supporting you this afternoon. Okay, thank you, Siri. So I'm going to share again a screen again. I hope we will be tracking every issue that you're facing, and we have a big team, so everybody will be supported by a different person, but you will all be able to do it. Okay. Now this is the historical data template, and now let's see what we have on the left side, and we will discuss, let's say in detail, the different attributes. So we have here on the first column, we have plant, right? This is the plant. Now we have the list of the products, and they are identified by 3 columns. We have the product ID, the product description, and the commodity that the product belongs to. So I have a question for you now, related to what we discussed this morning. That's a question I would like you to answer on the chat. Looking at this, if I'm adjusting or something, if I need to adjust some information later, at what planning level we are? That's a question for you. Please reply on the chat. At what planning level are we right now? So the planning level here is plant and product ID, because every line that you see here is referring to a particular, let's say, product ID. So we have several in this plant. We have historical consumptions for burner, alcohol, tubes, a blood vacuum, pipette sets, pregnancy sets, clothes, a lot of things. Covers for the shoes, masks, surgical face mask, all these elements. And then what we see on the right side of the screen is the consumption of these elements in the past, month by month. As Valentina explains later, I explained yesterday, we can see also this by week. On this side of the screen, we also have 2 more columns that are important. Product type. Pay attention to this. Product type is telling us if the product ID that we have is a material or if it's a service. So if I scroll down, I will find also I might find also some services. You can recognize them from the number of the product ID as well, right? 21, they are fixed assets. 15, that might be equipment. 16 might be supplies, right? You see ventilators. The ventilator from the video is here. This is the product ID. But if I scroll, I will see also some services. You see, medical evacuation services. So you can filter, or if you want to focus on services or something that they are very important, you will see it here. And then on the next column, close to product type, we have another very important information. It's telling us if they are managed as quantity or if they are managed as value, which means that the numbers that we see on this, for example, gauss, for example, they are quantities, but if we see this, they are values. Of course, please don't be so hard with the values, because maybe for evacuation medical services it should be more expensive. No, this is just mock-up data for you to play. Like for physician emergency something, $800. I don't know if it's an accurate amount, but we will update this data with more realistic scenarios. Then eventually we have key figures. I hope you are still with me. On the key figures, we have 3 of them. Consumption history. For every product, we have 3 key figures. Consumption history is the first one. Like, let me take the first one, and it gives us what we are getting from ECC, from the production environment. So there were 26 elastic bandages consumed on June, 46 in July, and so on, so on, so on. And then we have the next line. It's adjusted consumption history. And then we have final consumption history after adjustment. So this white row here is for you to enter adjustment. In the exercise, we are asking you to find some products IDs. Actually, let me show you the exercise. So in the exercise, you will see that I'm doing this so you get familiar with the dynamic. We're asking you to go to historical data, to review the template, to add the filter, to copy the filter. All the steps are here. And then we are asking you to look for some product IDs assigned to you in the cover page and fill the following table. Why? Because we want you to understand what elements you have as quantity, value, and also base unit of measure. So if we need to find one product, how would you do it? Can someone give me an idea? If I need to find a product, a particular product, how would you do it? Please unmute yourself and talk, otherwise I feel very lonely and I don't know if you are following me. What would you do? Yeah, please.
This is Eleanor from Unsonsko.
Yeah.
We need to add another filter.
Very good.
Product ID.
And how do I add another filter once I have this view open?
I'll go to edit view, planning view.
Very good, very good. Edit view.
Yeah.
Very
and
good.
I go to filter.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And what do we do now? And then I add what?
Add attributes.
Very good. We add another attribute, and then here we say product.
Product ID, yeah.
Product ID, okay? Or we select it from the list, but I know that it's written like that. And then what product do I enter here? The one from the screenshot? No, we go to exercise sheet.
Yes, we selected one, the one we have to.
Exactly. So you got 3 assigned to you. So I go to this one and I enter it here. And then since the exercise also asking me about the unit of measure, I want to see something else. What is the problem here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Second.
David, you need to change the product ID in the filter to I, not to D.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Very good, yeah.
So, this is it. Who was that giving me? It was Ziad?
Ziad, yes.
Yeah, 1 extra point for you. For the okay, so this is the product ID. And now we said in the exercise, they're asking us something else. They're asking us base unit of measure that was not visible. So how do I do to see the base unit of measure?
We need to look for base unit, to go to attributes.
Very good. It's in attributes.
Yes.
And then we find.
And look for it, yeah.
Very good. Base unit of measure. So if I click here, it will appear automatically on the right side.
Exactly.
Which means it will be visible. So I'm going to thank you so much, Eleanor. I'm going to click on OK. And then hopefully we will only see this one product. Of course, in the filter, you could have entered 3 of them. But this is what I wanted to check. So we see that this one is managed in, let's say, each unit, its quantity and material. So this is the first part of the exercise.
David, sorry to disturb you. Just I raised my hand, but I just want to clarify one thing.
Yes.
I put in chat before that service accounts for 80% of demand, and it's very important to be considered. Okay. An example, I suggested that when we have exercise, we don't focus on 20, but we focus on 80.
All right.
In that sense, I wanted to go what you explained a couple minutes ago. You mentioned that service is combined on the value consolidated based on US dollar value.
Yes. Yes.
So let me give you one practical example from the mission that I used to be before coming to headquarters in UNSAS. Okay. Now, if I have historical data for consumption for service of maintaining vehicles, and I have, let me just go to that example. I have maintenance repair vehicles. That is the service product ID. That is all combined by value. However, I know that in a mission, I have one contract for, let's say, staff members in Nairobi. There is vehicles, there is contract there. Then there is contract in for UNMAS vehicle. Then there is contract for, let's say, light passenger vehicles. Then for specialized vehicles. Then it can be for COE. Then it can be for, let's say, armored vehicle. Those are all different type of contracts that I need to consider as separately.
Okay.
How do I make any business sense when you put and aggregate this all together in one single line in dollars value?
So, okay, so let me see if I understand enough. If I understand, let me stop sharing one moment, because then I can see also your face if you want. So the example that you are describing, you have multiple, there are different service IDs as well. There are different product IDs. That
No. We are talking about product ID. I'm just taking this example because I think for us is important to focus on what is 80%. 80% is service. And goods are 10 to 15% overall across the organization. If I look product ID 3000271, let's say UNSOS, maintain and repair vehicle. That is the product long description for that specific service. But I have not only under that service, not only different type of maintenance that I'm performing based on type of vehicles, but I have also based on locations. And then I have also different contracts that cover different type of clients. It can be internal and external to organization. So I have here multiple location, multiple contracts by type, multiple clients that are now combined all together in something, let's say in total, let's say be realistic. Let me go to some information. This is, let's say, 7 million. How do I make sense and how do I plan when I see all this together combined in the value amount of 7 million?
Okay, so I think there are two things there to consider, right? The first one is if you said they belong to different locations.
Yeah, different type of contract, different clients, different location. You know.
Okay, so for if I may.
I have so many things to consider, but now when you put this together, there is very little business sense because I don't know what is my historical demand related to specific client, let's say UNMAS. Or I don't know what is this maintenance for specialized vehicle, let's say fire trucks, or is this maintenance for the armored vehicle, or is it maintenance provided to COE, or is it maintenance for light vehicles? Okay. So how do I make business sense in planning? Now I see the total value and then I'm thinking as planner, I need to adjust something, but I have so many things combined in one single line. Okay, on historical consumption.
So if I may, for the location portion, this is something that at least that portion can be addressed with the planning level, right? You can
it's the same plant. The same plant.
Yeah, but when I go to the system, you can see at the planning level at the plant level, or you can see it at the sublocation level. So that split, you can see it in the system, right? For the portion of, so if you have a split by sublocation where you are the planner, and instead of watching the information at the plant level, you see it as sublocation, will that help you? Or you still have the problem with the different type of contracts?
Yeah, let's say in Mogadishu, I still have 7 contracts, different clients, different type of vehicles that I'm maintaining, and all they are covered by one single product ID for service.
So Dinesha, you want to add something? Because one thing is if the service is identifying different services, is more master data related. If it's the consolidation.
David, okay, sorry. David, if you want to bring the screen back on so we can maybe walk through the example.
Yeah. Okay.
So here, I mean, the service ID you mentioned, Suli, it's not here, but the idea is that you're saying that the maintenance service or the repair service, it could be many type of repairs, right? You said it could be COE, UNOE, or other type of vehicles. So like David said, one of the fundamental issue today that we have is that the service ID itself is very generic. So as you're aware of the MMT project, we are we're on the second stage. The third phase is that we will spell out each service ID for what it means, and more service IDs would be created, so planning can be identified accurately. But when you say in terms of location, I also want to bring back what David said. David can edit this view. Right now the data is at a plant or commodity ID and product ID. David can edit this view and add sub-location or even planning group for that matter. Maybe David, let's add both, or maybe start with the planning group. So planning group, if you take unsource, transportation is combined, engineering is combined. So you can see how this service ID was used in transportation and how this service ID was used in engineering. That data visibility does exist. To address the last question you raised in terms of contracts, we are still at the gross demand formulation phase. I know from an HQ standpoint, you right away you're interested in getting and seeing where are we going to source it, but we got to take it step by step.
No. But Denisha, when you are considering demand, I need to understand there is different kind of assessment made for different type of clients, for different type of vehicles. This is part of the planning. Now, yes, I agree with you that when we come to the sourcing, we will be confused because we have one single service that is related to 7 contracts. So it will be difficult to split in the sourcing. But I'm talking about planning. How do I make assessment of these different types of planning for, let's say, ambulance vehicles, for passenger utility vehicles, for armored vehicles, if this is combined? How do I make segregation, and how do I get sense what is going historically when it comes to those segments? Because I cannot consider in same bucket. When you put in same bucket different things, then you lose a sense of what's happened historically.
I mean, I'm not sure from a mission perspective, maybe it's my lack of knowledge, is that would you, if a vehicle comes into transportation and if they're performing some repair services, would they separate between a service that's provided for an ambulance versus, I mean, would they account for it differently from a repair service that they would account for ambulance versus 4x4? I don't think so. But if that information is needed, then I think you need to resort back to ECC where the preventative maintenance data is stored. But from a planning perspective, if I'm planning for the services of the transportation workshop, I do get it. We need to bring the service IDs to be more granular and show it here. But what David is going to show you here now, Suli, is the fact that how was this, based on the data we have today, how was this service ID utilized across the different planning groups that exist in the mission? That's what he's going to show. So, but if you...
So thank you, Denisha. Maybe before David goes, if you can address, I think a point that seems to be interesting and driving the chat here is about the mixed product type. How the solution represent a mixed product type when you have materials and service together.
So if on the David screen, once David gets out of this edit planning view, there is a column that indicates whether this item is a material or service and whether this is planned by quantity or value. That indication is given to the planner. So for example, let's wait for David to go back. So in this case, David is showing some, if you see column column F and G, F indicates that it's a material. And if it's a service, the planner will directly see it's a service. And column G will indicate whether it's planned by quantity or whether it's planned by value. So when the planner is looking at the numbers from column K onwards, the planner would know, am I now looking at quantity or am I now looking at value? So that visibility is given.
But Denisha, I think you sent an Excel sheet, and the Excel sheet is referring not to a different type of product, but a product that is mixed, both material and service, that a product that has 2 components.
See, then I think I know some of this, where we sometimes receive a material and a services as part of an existing service contract, right? I think that's the example that Gunmala previously referred to as well. Some of this, unfortunately, as much as we would like to address it, would only be addressed as part of MMT when new product IDs are created, and we are progressing. So we would create, if we working with the category managers, we identify this service ID as of today represents some products and as some services. Eventually, there'll be a material and services. Fuel is a classic example. Today, in some missions, we receive fuel as a service, and in some missions, we receive fuel as actually as a material. Going forward, we are going to separate it, and you can see the clear visibility as to when fuel is provided as part of a service or fuel is provided as a material, and the mission is managing it on a quantity basis. So we are making those differences and bringing those in.
Okay, thank you.
But following on question of location, you mentioned, let's say, another example. There is a service of cleaning.
So this one, for example,
if you do split by the location, you will be able to separately adjust. Let's say one site you are closing, so you may, let's say cleaning service will be 0, and it means there is possibility that you divide one single line of service based on other attributes and adjust them individually, so that planner create real business sense, looking at specific kind of aggregation of total value to the level that it makes sense to do adjustments. Because like,
so if I may,
maintenance is one example, cleaning service as another. I think there is a lot of examples that we need to look in service and see how planners look the specific combined figures and really decompose those on the levels that are important for planners to make assessment.
Absolutely, and if I may,
guys, if I can just say one thing, I think there's one fundamental concept, Suli, that I need to say it out loud. What will happen with this whole new solution is, and we started there, that the planning is not an activity of a one person or a second person sitting at one location doing it. This is why the system is designed, so that everybody who's really the planners or who are contributing to the gross demand are looking at their aspects. And this is why the way the planning group, the sublocations, all of that hierarchy that they showed is there will allow for it. So this has been already thought through, very detailed in terms of how entities and business will benefit. Your view of things is from where you are looking at. Somebody else's view of things would be from where they are looking at. What I would recommend is let it run through the whole process. And at the end of the 2 weeks period, if you see that that particular view of your perspective is not visible, then we take it. Because otherwise we won't be able to progress and see a lot of stuff you're asking is going to be just naturally there. We already spoke about sublocations. We already spoke about how it's going to be divided. So let's continue. But yes, all of that has been thought through. That gives you the confidence that yes, we have seen it, we know, and it will be here as they progress through the system.
I also want to add one more thing, Himanshu. I think I saw Lara responding it on chat, that this mix question, it comes from the DAP tool. Today in the DAP tool, because there's a capability to enter a material, there's a capability to enter a service, and at times you can plan it by product categories, and I think they have a drop down called mixed. We do, I mean, I would want to say we don't want to have anything here called mixed. You would plan at a product ID. When we say product, it either means a service ID that starts with the 3000 or a material ID of 1521, any one of those. And if needed, you will aggregate it. But that's why, like I said, alluding to my first thing I said, at times within a commodity, if we see both material and quantity, we are trying to avoid the combination of quantity and value. That's why we are clearly distinguishing here based on the quantity value indicator in column G. What is the basis of planning? Is it value or is it quantity?
Thank
David,
you.
please take over.
So if I may, also to close this conversation, because I was trying to show something on the screen that I think was appropriate for the question. And it's also important because it's related to the concept of the planning level we explained before. You remember I said at the beginning of the session, when you're using the DPSMP solution, you have to decide, and if I didn't say it, I say it and now, you have to decide at what level you want to plan. Now, the question that we have from the gentleman was that it didn't make sense to plan this particular service at plan level. like the cleaning service, for example, or the ones that we see on the screen. It may be evacuation service, medical, or ambulance services. You don't want to plan that at plan level because you say from the business point of view, it makes no sense. How do we deal with that in the solution? And that is important in the historical data exercise as well. You can do it, show only the plant, but if you show the sublocation, for example, now what I'm adjusting here is the historical data for this service, but in this particular sublocation. So if your entity has different sublocations by region and storage locations, you can adjust not only admission. It's a matter of what planning level you are working. If you only show the plant, you are doing the adjustment on the aggregation of all the data of the plant. If you show the planning group, you are doing it in a particular planning group for the full, for example, service delivery pillar, for the full engineering section, for the full medical section. If you put the sublocation, but in here, the example I took from UNON, there is only one sublocation. But if you do it at sublocation level, yes, you are adjusting in a more granular way. So you get the flexibility to do it at the level of planning that you want. So how would we?
Thank you, David. This was exactly my point, because we have centralized warehouses usually, or central management of equipment. That is fine. But when it comes to services, only going to the further levels and really doing adjustment on further levels is something that makes sense. So my suggestion was in that we include those exercises, because I think it's important for the two reasons. First, that service is mainstream of demand planning. And second is that this is something that really is practical and makes sense rather than aggregation or high level.
Okay, thank you. So I'm still mentioning this because this is still part of the exercise. So when you're practicing, you remember that you can always go, as Eleanor explained very well before, you can always go to edit view and modify the list of attributes. And you can, if you add sublocation, for example, you will do it at that level. Now for the adjustment, it's very easy. And then I only have 3 minutes. I have only 3 minutes, but it's really easy. So if you review data from July and you say, no, in July we had a bad situation, and it was not only 500s, it was more. It was 900s that we had to evacuate. This is dollars or whatever, right? Or I don't know, 10,000. And then in the amount in August was like smaller. You just add the information here on the white line, and this is the adjustment. All right. And then you have to click on save data. You might notice the icon is different because depending on the version of the Excel, but you have to click on save data. Now you will get a pop-up window asking you the reason for the change, because you are adjusting and there was a change in the historical data. So you just select one option here. Imagine that it's related to consumption issue, process issue, data issue, something. And then you can enter a comment here explaining something. Okay, of course, something that would make sense. So adjustment due to transaction process later or something, or backlog of transaction, and then you click on save. The moment you click on save, the system is saving this data on the let's say cloud, in the cloud. But and that's it. That would be the exercise. I think in the exercise there is also some step to enter some comments, and we will be happy to support. So for example, if you click on one cell, if you want, you can add some notes that are useful for the review of the data later. So you can do right click, and I think you can insert a comment here. I don't see now the option. So you can click on, add planning note. I think it was there, no? Was it there? Here, add planning note. So you can add a planning note and then explain that this was reduced due to the adjustment on the previous month, something. So these cells can have some comments that can be reviewed later by someone else. But when you are saving data, you are putting general comments for all the adjustments. Okay.
David, sorry for being the party crasher, but we are running out of time.
Yeah, it's 2 o'clock. Yeah, so yeah, it's over. The demonstration is over, so we can finalize here. I just went through all the exercise, and all the steps in the exercise have been covered. So it was just so after you enter the node, I think you can save date again, and that is basically the exercise you will follow. I'm going to stop sharing.
David, David Isaac from UNMISS, before you stop sharing,
okay.
How would you take care of a reduction which will be a negative figure?
The
example you gave was giving positive additions.
No, if you see, sorry, if you see July, it's a positive addition. If it's August, it's a negative addition. What you enter here, thank you for the question. What you enter in the white cell is not the reduction or the increase. Is the final value. So you see, it was 500, but they said no, it's not 500, it's 10,000.
Right, understood.
And the result is 10,000. For the next paper, it was 400 or 398, and I said no, it's 200. So the result is 200.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all, Himanshu, from my side. So we finished on time. 1 minute. I got 1 extra minute. Okay.
No worries. I think
there is a hand from Sayed. There is a raised hand.
Okay.
Yeah, it's over there. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, no, I think Dinesha and Dave already answered somewhat, but my question was basically on items or product type that is carrying mixed. So somehow it was answered. So Himanshu was saying that to wait until the second week, perhaps, I mean, most of this will be covered. So we'll be waiting to see, how this will be handled. And a little point or addition I would like to say also on the same line, because Dave gave certain inputs earlier about these services. I'm not sure how far you have thought of when it comes to the services, because there are certain items in services, quantity and the unit price does make sense in certain areas, but not all of them, but some of them make sense, to have to capture, like lease rents and everything, it gives a kind of planning value for us. So when you take a ballpark figure, like, I mean, if you take the total value, you just dollarize and put it in the system, like who Suleiman was saying, perhaps, that value is diminished in the plan. So if you can come out with something for that, please. Yeah. Thank you.
So that is something that we will discuss, I think, next week when we talk about unit prices and dollarization. So that will be a good moment to discuss again that one. But we take note of that. I mean, if not, let's write it on the chat and we will come up. So that was all for today. We are sending you the exercise for you to go ahead. And then very important for me, Himanshu, and we are closing with that sentence. We have to make sure everybody has to reach the historical data template. So if you didn't, write to us and we will go with all our people to support. Okay? That's the goal.
David, in addition to the exercises, can you send the presentations as well?
Of course.
Yeah, sure, I will.
Of course, we will do all that now. All right. So thank you for your patience. I think it was a good session today, and a lot of discussion and good points to carry onward. So that's all. Over to you, Himanshu, if you want to say a final word.
No, I just want to recognize that there is a lot of content and we have a lot to cover to get to the end of the period that is already predefined. But given the pace, and if it stays this way, and if we have to always somehow scramble at the last few minutes, I may request, and Amrin will reach out, and we will try to figure out if we need to extend by additional few days or somehow, because we do not want to walk away with you guys not hearing and understanding every single concept that we are trying to do. There are a lot of good questions, and I think what we're going to try to figure out is a way how we manage some of these questions so that maybe we take separate time for just questions. But I just have a little bit of fear right now. It's the third day and we have run out of time. So I want to find a way that we catch up and we make sure that the content is fully covered, because lot of stuff. I know the eagerness to get to the conclusion, but it is all thought through, and it will be spoken about as we get to the end. Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I'm going to wait so at least I can see your faces and I try to learn your names. Oh, nice. See you tomorrow, Harriet. Okay, Stefano Utam. Good to see you, Stefano. Amarin, I know you very well. Hide your camera. Salvatore. Hey.
How are you, David?
I'm fine. I miss you. I miss you.
I miss you too. I'll see you tomorrow, guys.
See you
Goodbye.
tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye. Isaac, you have a nice background.
So, see you, David, tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Ciao.